To my daughter who finally found a man desperate enough. My father said that glass raised, smile wide, 72 guests staring at my own engagement party. The room went dead silent. Not the polite kind. The kind where you can hear someone's breath catch 3 tables away. My fiancé's hand clenched under the tablecloth. I felt his body start to rise. But I held his arm, held it firm. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I walked to the front of that room, opened my laptop, and projected one single document onto the screen. My father's business partner of 20 years dropped his champagne glass. It shattered on the marble floor. And that sound, that was the sound of my father's entire life falling apart. I never meant for it to happen like this. But this story doesn't start at the party. It starts 4 months earlier, on a night that still makes my stomach twist when I think about it. I'm Sophia Bennett, 31 years old, and I dig through numbers for a living. As a forensic accountant, I chase shadows in spreadsheets, hunting for lies that people think they've buried deep. That night, I was alone in my office. The clock ticking past 10, the hum of the air conditioner the only sound. My desk lamp cast a cold circle of light on the screen, and I was knee-deep in a client's messy files, wire transfers, fake invoices, the kind of tricks that scream fraud. Then I saw it, a pattern. Small at first, just like the ones my dad had shown me over the years, asking for my smart daughter's second opinion on his company books. I'd always said yes, hoping it meant he saw me as more than a disappointment. But now, staring at the screen, my fingers froze on the keyboard. The LLC names matched. The routing numbers. The dates. It was all connected to Bennett and Whitaker Builders, my father's company. My heart slammed against my ribs. This can't be right. Not him. Not the man who built everything from a beat-up truck in sheer will. I leaned back, the chair creaking under me, and rubbed my eyes. The office felt smaller, the shadows in the corners deeper. Outside, rain pattered against the window, blurring the city lights. I thought about my dad, Victor Bennett, the guy everyone in town looked up to, the one who'd turned a handshake loan into a construction empire. But at home, his words cut like hidden blades. I was 11 when he first made me feel small. Straight A's on my report card, and he barely glanced at it. Good grades don't mean you're smart, Sophia. Teachers just feel sorry for you. Mom sat there, silent, sipping her coffee. That was their dance. He struck. She watched. Yet there were those rare moments that kept me hooked. Like when I was 14, and he taught me to ride a bike in the driveway. The sun was setting, painting the asphalt gold, and when I wobbled to the end of the street without falling, he grinned. That's my girl. I clung to those words for years, replaying them in the dark. But even then the Whitakers were over for dinner. It was for show. Always for show. My phone buzzed on the desk, pulling me back. A text from Lucas. You okay? Working late again? I smiled despite the knot in my chest. Lucas Hayes. The lawyer I'd met at a conference in Denver. He wasn't loud like Dad. He listened. Really listened. We'd been together 18 months, and he'd already seen through the cracks in my family. On our third date, after I joked about Dad's wedding speech calling me next if anyone would have her, Lucas set his fork down, his eyes locked on mine, steady as always. Sophia, that's not normal. You know that, right? I hadn't answered then. But something inside me shifted, like a lock clicking open. Now with this file staring back at me, that shift felt like a crack widening into a chasm. What if this is it? What if I can't unsee it? I saved everything to a new folder on my laptop, Project Sentinel, and closed the lid. The rain had picked up, drumming harder against the glass. I drove home in silence, the wipers slapping rhythmically, my mind racing through the numbers. Over a decade of it, funds siphoned from Henry Whitaker, Dad's partner of 20 years, the man who trusted him like family. I pulled into my driveway, the headlights cutting through the dark. Lucas's car was already there. I sat for a minute, engine off, hands gripping the wheel. He's stealing from Henry, and I have the proof. The thought made my throat tight. Dad wasn't just cruel, he was a thief. And I, the girl who'd spent her life chasing his approval, was the one who could bring it all crashing down. I went inside, the house warm and quiet. Lucas looked up from the couch, his face softening when he saw me. Rough day? He asked, standing to pull me into a hug. His arms were solid, safe. I buried my face in his shirt, breathing him in. You have no idea, I whispered, but I didn't tell him yet. Not fully. The words stuck, heavy as lead. Instead, I let him hold me, the rain tapping on the roof like a warning. Tomorrow, I'd dig deeper. But that night, As we lay in bed, the ceiling fan spinning lazy circles above us. I stared into the dark and wondered, how do you love someone who's been lying to you your whole life? The next morning hit like a slap. I woke to the smell of coffee brewing, Lucas already up and moving in the kitchen. Sunlight sliced through the blinds, sharp and unforgiving, turning the wooden counters into golden strips. I shuffled in, still in my pajamas, my mind a fog of numbers and dread. He slid a mug my way without a word, his eyes searching mine, those steady brown eyes that always seemed to cut through the noise. "You didn't sleep," he said, leaning against the counter. His voice was low, careful, like he was handling fragile glass. "I felt you tossing all night." I wrapped my hands around the warm mug, the heat seeping into my palms. How do I even start? The words from last night burned in my throat, the files, the transfers. Dad's name stamped all over them like a bad signature. "It's the audit," I finally managed, my voice cracking just a little. "The one for that real estate client. Turns out it's bigger than I thought." Lucas crossed his arms, his shirt sleeves rolled up from the night before. He was tall, solid, with that quiet strength that made rooms feel safer. A lawyer through and through, always listening first, speaking when it counted. "Bigger how?" He tilted his head, waiting. No pressure, but the question hung there, pulling at me. I set the mug down harder than I meant to, the clink echoing in the small kitchen. My heart raced, the same way it did when I spotted a red flag in a client's books. Patterns don't lie, but family twists everything. It's connected to my dad's company, Bennett and Whitaker. The same tricks, overstated invoices, money routing through ghost companies. Henry Whitaker's been losing cash for years. Dad's been taking it. Lucas's face didn't change at first. He just nodded once, slow, like he was turning the words over in his mind. Then he pulled out a chair and sat across from me, elbows on the table. "Sophia, how sure are you?" "Dead sure," I whispered, the coffee suddenly tasting bitter. I pulled up the folder on my phone, sliding it over. My fingers trembled as I scrolled. Dates, amounts, the cold math of betrayal. I've been piecing it since college visits, when he'd ask me to check his files. I thought it was him trusting me. Now it feels like he was testing the waters, seeing if I'd catch on. He read in silence, his brow furrowing deeper with each line. The kitchen clock ticked louder than usual, marking seconds that felt like hours. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked once, sharp and distant, like a warning. Lucas finally looked up, his hand reaching for mine across the scarred oak table. "This is heavy. What are you thinking?" "What am I thinking? That the man who raised me is a liar. That every 19th that's my girl was just smoke." Grief twisted in my chest, sharp as a paper cut. "I don't know. He's my dad. The guy who worked 17-hour days, built a business from a pickup truck and grit. Everyone in town sees him as the hero, the barbecue king, the church guy who always picked up the tab. But at home, I trailed off, staring at the steam rising from my mug. He'd say things like, "Good grades don't make you smart, Sophia. Teachers pity you." And Mom, she'd just sit there, nodding along. I thought it was normal. Until you. Lucas squeezed my hand, his thumb tracing small circles on my skin. "And now, with this, I have to do something," I said, my voice firmer than I felt. "But not yet. The party's coming. His big show. I can't blow it up before then. Henry deserves to hear it clean, from me, face to face." He leaned back, studying me. "You're carrying this alone. For how long?" "Long enough." I forced a smile, but it felt fake, stretched thin. God, I love him, but loving him means risking everything. Dad's rage, Mom's silence, the life I thought I knew. The fear coiled tighter, a cold knot in my gut. What if this tore us apart? What if I became the villain in my own family story? We talked for hours that morning, the coffee going cold as words spilled out. Lucas didn't push, but he asked the hard questions, the ones that made my stomach flip. How much? Over what time? His tone stayed even, but I saw the flicker in his jaw, the way his free hand clenched on the table. "And your mom? Does she know?" "I don't think so," I said, shaking my head. "She's always been the buffer. Quiet. Watching. Like when I was 11, report card in hand, and he dismissed it. She never stepped in." Nostalgia hit then, uninvited. A flash of Dad teaching me to ride that bike, his laugh echoing down the driveway as the Whitakers clapped from the porch. Was any of it real, or just another performance? By afternoon the decision settled like dust after a storm. I'd finished the report, Keep it locked in Project Sentinel. Get through the party. Then Tuesday straight to Henry. Lucas pulled me close on the couch, his chin resting on my head. Whatever you decide, I'm here. But Sophia, this changes things. You can't keep swallowing it all. I know, I murmured into his shirt. The words felt like a promise, fragile but real. Yet as the days blurred into weeks, the secret gnawed at me. Late nights at the firm, I'd stare at the screen, tracing those transfers like veins in a body I once thought was whole. My hands flew over the keyboard, building the case with the precision I used for clients, detached, professional. But inside, it was a storm. He's not just stealing money, he's stealing my trust, my memories, the version of him I clung to like a lifeline. Then came the proposal. A Sunday morning, simple as breathing. Lucas made coffee, black and strong, just how I liked it. We sat at the same kitchen table, sunlight warming the wood. He set his mug down, looked me dead in the eye. Sophia, I want every morning like this. The quiet, the us. Will you marry me? Tears stung my eyes before I could stop them. Yes, I breathed, the word tumbling out. No ring, no fuss, just him, steady as ever. We laughed then, the kind that bubbles up from relief, and for a moment the weight lifted. This is what family could be. Honest, safe. But Dad had other ideas. 3 days later, his call came like a thunderclap. I was at my desk finalizing a different client's file when my phone lit up. Sophia, he said, his voice booming even through the speaker. I'm taking care of the engagement party. Booked the lakeside pavilion. Valet. The works. No arguments. My stomach dropped. Here we go. Dad, Lucas and I wanted something small. Backyard friends. He cut me off with that laugh. The one that filled rooms but never quite reached his eyes. Small? For my only daughter. Come on, kid. I'm paying. Let me do this right. A pause, then softer, almost rehearsed. You deserve it, Sophia. After everything. After everything. The words twisted like a knife. I pictured him in his study, yellow legal pad in hand, scripting this call. Fine, I said, the old habit kicking in. Folding. Always folding. But keep it simple, okay? Simple's not my style. He chuckled. You'll see. Mom called next, her voice that practiced gentle tone, like she was coaxing a scared animal. Just let him, honey. He's excited. For once he's trying. I could hear the clink of her teacup in the background, the house quiet except for the distant hum of the fridge. Trying? Or controlling? Remember how he was at your graduation? Proud? In his way? Proud? The word echoed. Hollow. I'd never heard it from him directly. Not once. But now, with the fraud burning in my files, it felt like poison. Yeah, Mom. I remember. The guest list ballooned fast. 72 names. His golf buddies front and center. My friends shoved to the back like leftovers. I called him, pacing the living room, phone pressed tight to my ear. Dad, Emily and the work crew are at table 8? By the kitchen? Networking. Sophia, he said, his tone sharpening like a blade. This isn't playtime. It's opportunity. Don't be selfish. A beat of silence, then that fake warmth. Besides, Henry's at table 1, with us. Family first, right? Family. The irony clawed at me. Henry, the man Dad was robbing blind. I hung up, hands shaking, and Lucas watched from the doorway, his face tight. He's performing again, he said quietly. For them, putting you on display. I know, I whispered. The fear crept in deeper now, cold and insistent. What if he finds out about the files? What if this party becomes the spark? The night before, I stopped by their house to drop the seating chart. The driveway was slick from an early rain, the air thick with the scent of wet leaves. Dad's study door was cracked, light spilling out like a secret. He sat at his desk, pen scratching on that yellow pad, glasses perched low. Dad, what are you writing? He didn't look up at first, just kept writing, slow and deliberate. My toast. Don't worry. Can I read it? My voice came out smaller than I wanted, the old 11-year-old fear flickering back. Now he glanced up, that smile, lips only, eyes flat. You'll hear it tomorrow, with everyone else. A pause, heavy. Trust me, sweetheart. It'll be memorable. Memorable. The word sent a chill down my spine. Mom appeared then, tea in hand, her eyes darting between us. Your father's speeches are always something, she said, steering us away. Like at Frank's retirement. Remember? I did. The gut punch jokes. The laughs that masked the hurt. I grabbed my bag and left, the laptop heavy in the trunk, my Tuesday deadline file, the one that could end it all. As I drove away, the house lights shrinking in the rear view, a single thought looped. If I don't draw the line now, I'll disappear like Mom did. Silent, smiling through the cracks. Friday morning came too fast, the kind of day where the sun felt too bright, mocking the storm building inside me. I sat at our kitchen table, the guest list glowing on my laptop screen like a bad omen. Lucas was across from me, sipping his coffee, his eyes on mine. The air smelled of toast, and the faint chill from the open window, where a breeze carried the distant rumble of traffic. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, tracing the names. 72 of them. Dad's additions everywhere, his golf crew at the front tables. My friends crammed in the back like an afterthought. Table 8 by the kitchen? I muttered, my voice tight. For Emily, Jazz, the whole work group. Lucas set his mug down with a soft clink, leaning forward. He's stacking the deck, Sophia. You know that. His hand found mine, warm and steady, but it didn't chase the cold knot in my chest. He's turning my night into his stage again, just like always. But this time, I have the files, the proof. What if tonight's the night it all cracks open? I dialed Dad, the phone ringing twice before his voice boomed through. Sophia, good morning. Ready for the big night? Dad, the seating, my people are in the back. Your buddy's up front with us. I kept my tone even, but my free hand clenched the edge of the table, nails digging into the wood. Don't fold, not this time. A pause on his end, then that chuckle, warm on the surface, sharp underneath. Networking, kid. This party's an opportunity. Henry's there, Patricia too. Table 1, right next to family. You want them seeing the best of us, don't you? His words hung there, laced with that familiar edge, the one that said don't question me. I could picture him in his study, leaning back in that leather chair, the yellow pad still on his desk from last night. Opportunity for who? I pressed, my heart picking up speed. This is supposed to be about Lucas and me, not your Rotary pals or the Warrens. Selfish talk, Sophia. His voice dropped a notch, that warning tone creeping in like fog. I'm doing this for you, for the family. Don't make it about you. A beat, then softer, almost pleading. Trust me. It'll be perfect. Trust. The word tasted like ash. I hung up, the phone slipping from my fingers onto the table. Lucas watched, his jaw tight. He's performing for Henry, he said quietly. The loving dad, the happy family. You're the prop. I know, I whispered, closing the laptop with a snap. The sound echoed in the quiet kitchen too loud. And he doesn't know I have the receipts, the transfers, all of it. The fear twisted deeper, a mix of dread and something sharper resolve. I'd waited months for this. Built the report like a fortress, brick by brick, using the same skills that made me good at my job. Spotting lies, unraveling webs. But this web was my blood. We drove to the lakeside pavilion early, the car quiet except for the hum of the engine and the occasional whoosh of passing trucks. The venue loomed ahead, all exposed brick and brass under a gray November sky, the lake beyond it rippling dark and still. Valet guys in crisp uniforms nodded as we pulled up, but inside the air felt heavy, charged. Candles flickered on tables, white orchids everywhere, the string quartet tuning up in the corner with soft haunting notes that seemed to echo my nerves. I busied myself with centerpieces at table 3, my hands steady but my mind racing. Breathe, just get through setup. Then voices drifted from the hallway near the coat check. Dad and Henry, close, drinks in hand. I froze behind the wall, centerpiece still clutched tight. Dad's voice was all public charm, expansive. Henry, I'm so proud of my little girl. She's everything I raised her to be. Henry laughed, warm. You've done a hell of a job, Vic. Family first, that's you. Proud. The word hit like a punch to the gut. He'd never said it to my face. Not at my CPA exam, not when I landed the firm job. But here, to the man he was stealing from, it was currency. Fake. God, the lies run so deep. I set the flowers down quietly, my chest aching with that old grief. The little girl still hoping for scraps of real love. But the auditor in me noted the date, 4 months of digging, and this was the spark. Tonight, it ends. Guests trickled in by 7. I wore the cream silk dress, simple and flowing. Lucas in his navy suit looking like the anchor I needed. Dad met us in the foyer, arms wide, champagne sloshing. There's my beautiful girl. He pulled me into a hug, holding too long, his cologne sharp and expensive. Beautiful? Now, in front of them, my body went stiff, but I hugged back, the performance pulling me in. Henry shook my hand next. Genuine. Congratulations, Sophia. Your dad's been talking this up for weeks. Thanks, Mr. Whitaker, I said, meaning it more than he knew. You'll know soon. The truth. We sat at table 1, the tribunal set up, Dad at the head, Henry and Patricia to his right, Mom to his left, Lucas and me across. The food came rich and heavy, but it sat like lid in my stomach. Dad launched into stories between courses, his voice carrying like he owned the room. Remember when Sophia failed her driving test? 3 times. Laughter rippled, forced and uneasy. And the cooking. Nearly burned the kitchen down with scrambled eggs. More chuckles, but they felt thin. I smiled the old smile, autopilot, my hand finding Lucas's under the table. His grip was iron. He's gutting me again, in front of everyone. Patricia leaned toward Mom, her voice low but carrying. Victor's being a bit hard on her, isn't he? Mom's reply was instant, polished. Oh, that's just how he shows love. But her eyes flicked to me, a flash of something regret, before she looked away. Then 8:45. Dessert cleared. The quartet fell silent. Dad stood, tapping his glass, the room hushing like it always did for him. A toast to my daughter Sophia. My heart lurched, stupid hope flickering. Maybe this time. For 31 years I've watched her struggle. With school, work, relationships that fizzled. The words landed heavy, eyes shifting to me. There were times I wondered if anyone would stick around to figure her out. A few awkward laughs. Then the kill shot. So tonight, to Sophia, who finally found a man desperate enough. Silence crashed down. No one joined the laugh. Glasses froze mid-air. A woman at table 4 covered her mouth. Henry's face went blank. Lucas tensed beside me, his chair scraping as he started to rise. I grabbed his arm. Don't, I whispered, my voice steel. I've got this. The room held its breath. Dad grinned wider, doubling down. Come on, it's a joke. Sophia knows I love her, right, sweetheart? 72 eyes on me, 5 endless seconds. Then I said it, clear and quiet. Sit down, Dad. His grin cracked. Sophia, don't be dramatic. Sit down. My voice didn't waver. The silence was deafening. He stared, mouth opening then closing, searching for allies in the sea of faces. None came. He sat, the chair groaning under him. For the first time he obeyed me. I pushed back, stood, smoothed my dress. The walk to the front felt eternal, heels clicking on marble, every eye tracking me. My laptop bag waited under the AV table, heavy with secrets. I unzipped it, plugged in the HDMI, hands calm on the outside. Dad's voice sliced from behind. Sophia, what are you doing? I didn't turn. The screen lit up. Project Sentinel. I faced the room. My father just told you all I'm worthless, that no one would want me. My tone was professional, the one I used in boardrooms. So let's talk about who he really is. I clicked. The audit summary filled the screen. Dates, transfers, the cold facts of 14 years of theft. Gasps rippled. Henry's glass tilted, shattered on the floor with a crack like thunder. This is a forensic report, I said, scrolling to the numbers. Unauthorized funds from Bennett and Whitaker. Mr. Whitaker's money. Dad shot up. Chair scraping. This is lies. She's angry making it up. His voice cracked, loud now, the mask slipping. Henry, listen. Henry raised a hand, palm out. Don't. His voice shook but it carried. He pulled his phone, dialed right there. Dave, it's Henry. Office Tuesday. About the partnership. He hung up, eyes locked on Dad. My lawyer will be in touch. Don't call, don't come. Chairs scraped as people stood, coats in hand. The exodus was quiet, deliberate. Lucas stepped to my side, his hand on my back. Helen Hayes, his mom, crossed the room, took my hands. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. Those words proud from her, not him. It cracked something open in me. Henry approached Dad, face to face. 20 years I trusted you. His voice was low, lethal. Your daughter showed me what you hid. Dad stammered, context, restructuring. Henry almost smiled, bitter. She's a forensic accountant, Victor. The numbers don't lie. He straightened his tie. My lawyer, Tuesday. He turned to Patricia. Let's go. She squeezed my hand on the way out. Thank you for the truth, Sophia. I know what it cost. The room emptied, slow and final. By 9:30 it was just us. Mom at the table, still as stone. Dad by the bar, whiskey untouched, tie loose, eyes red. "You destroyed me," he said, voice raw. "No, Dad." I met his gaze, no flinch. "You did that. I just stopped hiding it." He turned to Mom. "Eleanor, tell them she's wrong." She looked up, voice quiet but firm. "You did this, Victor. Not her." 7 words. The door closing on 35 years. I grabbed my bag, walked to Lucas at the door. The November air hit sharp as we stepped out, clean and biting. My hands shook now, the adrenaline crashing. It's done, but why does it feel like losing everything? We drove home in silence, the lake lights fading behind us, and for the first time the grief felt real, not for the man he was, but for the one I wished he'd been. The drive home from the lakeside pavilion felt like slipping through a fog. Lucas gripped the wheel, his knuckles white under the dashboard lights, while I stared out the window at the dark lake, its surface rippling like it was whispering secrets. The November air seeped through the cracks, cold and sharp, making the car feel smaller, tighter. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, even after I tucked them under my thighs. What have I done? The thought looped, heavy with grief. Not regret for the truth. I'd built that report like I built every case at work, layer by layer, chasing the lies until they couldn't hide. But this was my family unraveling, thread by thread, and I was the one holding the scissors. Lucas glanced over, his voice low and steady. "You okay?" He reached for my hand, lacing our fingers. His touch was warm, the only steady thing in the chaos. I nodded, but the words caught. I keep seeing his face. When Henry said don't call, like the ground fell out from under him. My chest tightened, that old ache flaring, the little girl who still wanted her dad to be the hero. He called me beautiful tonight, first time, and it was all for show, for Henry, the man he robbed. Lucas squeezed harder. "You didn't destroy him, Sophia. He built the trap himself. You just opened the door." He paused, the wipers swishing softly against a light drizzle that had started. "But I saw you up there, facing him. Proud doesn't even cover it. Proud." The word from Helen earlier still echoed, a balm on the wound Dad had never healed. I leaned my head against the seat, eyes closing. 31 years of shrinking, and tonight I stood tall. But at what cost? The house lights appeared ahead, warm and inviting, but they felt distant now, like the family I'd left behind in that empty room. Inside, we collapsed on the couch, the string quartet's music still faint in my ears. Lucas made tea, chamomile, the kind that soothed without asking questions. We sat in the quiet, the clock ticking on the wall like a heartbeat. "What happens next?" he asked, his arm around me, pulling me close. "Tuesday," I said, the word tasting final. "Henry's lawyer gets the books. Independent audit. Clean. No me involved." I traced the rim of my mug, the steam curling up like smoke from a dying fire. My report was the match. Now the blaze is theirs. I hope Mom's okay." She finally spoke up. "But she's been silent so long." He kissed my temple. "She chose tonight. That's something." But his voice held the weight we both felt, the fear that this would ripple out, tearing at the edges of everything. Sleep came in fits. Dreams of Dad's face crumbling, of spreadsheets bleeding red. I woke at dawn, the house still dark, and checked my phone. 14 missed calls from him. My stomach twisted. He's not done. He never is. Tuesday hit like a freight train. I was at the firm, buried in a different client's files, when Lucas texted, "Henry's guy is in the office now. Court order. Full audit." I stared at the screen, my pen frozen mid-note. This is it. The numbers will speak, but the relief mixed with a deeper sadness, the kind that settles in your bones. I'd spent months in the shadows, tracing those transfers like veins in a body I thought I knew. Now the light was on, and it burned. By Wednesday the whispers started. Small town like ours, news traveled on phone lines and coffee shop counters. "Did you hear about the party?" I'd catch snippets at the grocery store, heads turning my way. Dad's country club kicked him off the roster. No vote, no fuss, just gone. The man who'd bought rounds for decades couldn't even get a table. I pictured him at the front desk, that confident smile cracking as they handed back his card. "How does it feel, Dad, to be the one on the outside?" His calls kept coming. I let them ring, the phone buzzing on my desk like an angry bee. On the 15th, it went to voicemail. I played it once, alone in the break room, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. "Sophia," his voice rasped, rough from lack of sleep. "You need to fix this. Call me back. Now. Orders. Even in the wreckage." I deleted it, the button press feeling like a small rebellion. Fix it, like I fixed your books all those years. No more. The independent audit dragged on for weeks. 8 of them, each one pulling more threads. I stayed out of it, professional to the core, but the reports trickled back through Lucas's contacts. $2,340,000, siphoned over 14 years. Small bites at first, then bigger, funding the lake cabin, the boat, the life he paraded like a trophy. All from Henry's trust. The thought made my eyes sting. I'd audited enough frauds to know the pattern. Greed starts quiet, then devours. But this was personal. It had eaten my childhood whole. Then the lawsuit hit in March. Breach of trust, fraud, the works. Henry's lawyer called Lucas off the record one evening. His voice clipped over speakerphone as we sat at the kitchen table. Dinner forgotten. Criminal referrals on the table. He said, DA's looking. Your girl's report was gold, but we need it airtight. Lucas nodded, though the man couldn't see. She did what was right, at a cost. A pause on the line. Yeah, family's a hell of a thing. Dad hired a shark of a lawyer, but money was tight now. Assets frozen. The business, suspended by May. Contracts voided. Those 18 employees, the ones he'd bragged about building from nothing, now lining up for unemployment checks. I saw the notices online. The company name crossed out like a bad debt. The cabin went up for sale next. I clicked the listing one night, the photos hitting like ghosts. Deck parties under summer skies. Dad holding court with a beer, laughing loud. 4th of July barbecues, where he was king. Now it was empty, listed at a fire sale price. Lucas showed me over his shoulder. You good? I closed the tab quick. He did this to himself, I said, but my voice wavered, and I pulled the pin. For Henry. For me. The grief wasn't loud. It was a quiet weight, pressing down as I lay in bed later, staring at the ceiling fan's slow spin. I missed the dad who taught me to ride that bike. The one who said, that's my girl, like it meant something. But he was never real, just a shadow I chased. Mom's call came on a Saturday, out of the blue. I was folding laundry in the living room, sunlight slanting through the windows, when my phone lit up. Her name on the screen made my heart stutter. I almost let it go, but something, maybe the echo of her silence at the party, made me answer. Sophia. Her voice was small, cracked at the edges like she'd been crying. Hi, honey. Mom. I sat on the couch. The phone pressed close. The house was quiet. Lucas out running errands. What's going on? A long breath on her end. Then words that tumbled slow. I should have said something. Years ago. 35 of them. Watching him chip away at you. At us. I told myself it was his way. Tough love. But seeing you stand up like that, it shattered me. She paused, and I could hear the clink of a spoon in the background. Tea. Always tea. I'm sorry, Sophia, for not protecting you, for teaching you to fold when you should have fought. Tears burned my eyes, hot and sudden. Finally. Mom. I waited so long to hear that. My voice broke, the internal walls I'd built cracking. But sorry isn't enough now. Not after everything. I know, she whispered. I'm starting therapy. Last week. First time, talking about it all. The silence. How I let it swallow me. Another pause. Heavier. You showed me how to breathe again. We talked longer than we had in years. 25 minutes of careful words like stepping on thin ice. She asked about Lucas, about the wedding plans. I told her bits, the small backyard idea, and she listened. Really listened. No steering. No excuses. It wasn't fixed, not by a long shot, but it was a start, fragile as a new leaf. 3 days later, Dad's text came. One line, cold on the screen. You chose a stranger over your own blood. I read it twice, the words blurring. Stranger. Henry was family to him, until the money ran out. It was the last nail. He didn't get it. Never would. Control was all he knew. I deleted it, the phone feeling lighter in my hand. Goodbye, Dad. The version I loved anyway. 9 months blurred by in a haze of court dates and quiet nights. The civil case ground on. Henry's team building their wall of evidence. I gave my deposition last month. Facts only, no tears. Just the numbers. Clean and damning. Dad sold the cabin. Mom moved in with her sister in April. The house too empty for ghosts. He rented a place on the east side. Alone. No more calls. The silence was mine now, and it felt like freedom wrapped in sorrow. But life pushed forward. Lucas and I planned our real celebration. His parents' backyard, 20 people, string lights twinkling like stars. We'd caught ourselves. No pavilion, no show, just us. 9 months slipped by like pages turning in a book I couldn't put down. The days blended into a rhythm of quiet rebuilding. Work at the firm, evenings with Lucas where we'd cook simple meals and talk about everything but the past. The civil case hummed in the background. Depositions and filings that I handled like any other audit. Facts, numbers, no room for the heart to bleed. But at night, alone in the shower with the water pounding, I'd let the grief wash over me. Family. What a fragile word. I thought it meant blood and bonds, but it was just a cage I learned to live in. The real celebration came on a warm June evening, in Lucas's parents' backyard. No marble floors, no string quartet, just 20 of us under string lights we'd strung up that afternoon, their soft glow casting long shadows on the grass. The air smelled of charcoal from the grill and fresh-cut lemons from Helen's famous bars cooling on the picnic table. Burgers sizzled, beer cans cracked open with easy pops, and laughter, real belly-deep laughter, floated on the breeze. Emily and Jazz sprawled on lawn chairs, swapping stories from work, while Mark, Lucas's best man, flipped patties and cracked jokes that had everyone leaning in. I stood by the grill, a cold drink in hand, watching it all. Mom arrived early, her car pulling up with a soft crunch on the gravel driveway. She carried a casserole dish, something she'd baked herself, potato salad, simple and homemade, the kind Dad would have scoffed at and ordered catered instead. She looked smaller somehow, her shoulders less tense, but her eyes brighter. "Sophia," she said, pulling me into a hug that lingered a beat longer than before. "This is nice, really nice." "It is," I replied, squeezing back. Her perfume was the same as always, but now it didn't carry the weight of old silences. We'd talked more in these months, weekly calls that started awkward and grew into something real. Therapy had softened the edges, but the cracks were still there, visible in the way she hesitated before speaking, like testing thin ice. "Thanks for coming, Mom. Means a lot." She nodded, her hand brushing my arm. I wouldn't miss it, not anymore. A small smile, genuine, and for a moment the backyard felt fuller. She's trying. That's more than I ever got before. But the ache was there too, the girl in me still mourning the mom who could have fought sooner. Lucas's mom, Helen, bustled over then, her apron dusted with flour. "Sophia, honey, you look beautiful. That dress suits you." She took my hands, just like at the party, and her eyes shone. "Proud of you two. Always have been." Those words again, proud, hitting different now from someone who meant them without an audience. The evening unfolded easy, no scripts, no performances. We ate under the lights, the sky deepening to a soft purple as stars peeked out. Mark stood for his toast, short, 3 sentences, to Lucas and Sophia. "May your mornings always be coffee and quiet, and your fights end in forgiveness." Everyone cheered, glasses clinking, and I felt Lucas's arm slide around my waist, pulling me close, his breath warm on my ear. "This is us," he whispered, "no one else's show." Halfway through, the doorbell chimed from the house. Lucas's dad went to answer, returning with a massive bouquet, white peonies, their petals soft and fragrant, wrapped in crisp paper. "Delivery for Sophia," he said, handing it over with a curious grin. I took the card, my fingers tracing the envelope. Inside, simple script. "To Sophia, the most honest person I've ever known. Congratulations, Henry and Patricia Whitaker." The words blurred as I stared. Honest. From the man whose world I'd upended. Not a stranger, as Dad had called him in that final text. Family, in the way that mattered. Lucas came up behind me, his hand on my shoulder. "You okay?" His voice was gentle, but I heard the question underneath, the one we'd danced around for months. I turned, pressing my face into his chest, the peonies crushed between us. The tears came then, hot and messy, soaking his shirt. Not the quiet kind from the party night, but deep wrenching sobs that shook my whole body. 31 years chasing one word from Dad, and here it was, from Henry, from people who saw me for who I am. The grief poured out, the invented father on the bike, the real one in the study with his lies. The loneliness of carrying secrets, the relief of letting them go. He held me tight, rocking us slowly on the grass, the party quieting around us like a respectful hush. "Let it out," he murmured. "You've earned this." When the sobs eased, I pulled back, wiping my eyes with the back of my hand. The group had drifted closer, faces soft in the string lights. Mom watching with her own quiet tears, Emily offering a tissue. "Sorry," I said, laughing through the sniffles. Just hit me. No sorries tonight, Helen said, wrapping an arm around me. This is family. And it was. Not the blood one that had broken me, but the chosen one that built me back. We danced a little after that, Bluetooth speaker bumping old songs, feet kicking up dew from the lawn. Mom even joined in, her steps tentative at first, then freer, no big speeches, just moments stacking up like bricks in a new foundation. Later, as the night wound down and guests trickled out with hugs and promises to call, Lucas and I sat on the porch steps, the peonies in a vase between us. The air had cooled, crickets chirping in the dark yard, the lights still twinkling like distant hopes. You know, I said, leaning into him, I don't regret the truth, not for a second, but I do regret that he made me choose loyalty or honesty. It should have never come to that. He nodded, his fingers tracing my engagement ring. Family's supposed to lift you up, not hold you down. You chose you, Sophia, and us. A pause, then softer, and look what it built. I thought about Dad then, in his East Side apartment, alone with the ghosts of what he'd lost. The business gone, the friends faded like smoke. Mom with her sister, finding her voice in therapy sessions. Henry, moving forward with his life. The lawsuit grinding on but the wound starting to scar. What is family really? Not the name on a birth certificate. Not the man who performed love for a crowd. It's the ones who stay when the mask slips. The ones who say proud and mean it. I'm not a hero in this. Just a woman who finally spoke up when the silence got too loud. Some days the grief still whispers, missing the dad who never was. But I grieve and keep going, hand in hand with Lucas, toward our wedding in 2 months. Small, real, 40 people who choose us back. If a story like this, one that cuts straight to the bone, raw and unflinching, yet leaves you lighter somehow, ever shook something loose in you the way it still does in me, stay close. There are more truths waiting, more nights where the quiet finally breaks into something honest and alive. Hit that like if it stayed with you, and subscribe so the next one finds you when you need it most. We're just getting started.